The chains were cold against her wrists. Una kept her eyes on the floor as the guards dragged her through the massive doors. The halls of eternal order stretched before her like the throat of some giant beast. Thousands of aliens sat in rising circles around a central platform. They watched her with eyes of every color and shape. Some had no eyes at all. She was small. She was human. And to them, she was nothing. The guards threw her onto the platform. She landed hard on her knees, but did not cry out. She had learned long ago that crying only made them enjoy it more. Grand Arbiter Volos sat on a throne of black stone above the assembly. He was old. His skin looked like cracked gray leather, and his 4 eyes glowed with pale blue light. The Rithani were one of the oldest species in the galaxy. They believed they had earned the right to judge all others. Volos raised one long hand, and silence fell over the hall. "Bring forth the charges," he said. His voice was deep and cold, like wind through a dead forest. A smaller alien stepped forward. It held a glowing tablet and began to read. The human female designated Unicolony Registration 774 stands accused of the following crimes against the Galactic Council. First, terrorism against Council facilities. Second, destruction of Council property valued at 40 million standard credits. Third, the murder of 17 enforcement officers. Fourth, inciting rebellion among human populations on 3 colony worlds. The aliens in the gallery murmured. Some laughed. A human. Killing 17 officers? Impossible. Una lifted her head slowly. Her dark hair fell across her face, but through it her eyes found Volos. She stared at him without blinking. "How does the accused respond?" Volos asked. Una said nothing. "She does not deny it," Volos said with satisfaction. "The evidence is clear. The human is guilty." From somewhere in the crowd, a voice called out, "Wait, I request permission to speak for the accused." Heads turned. A woman stepped forward from a small section reserved for human diplomats. Her name was Hannah, and she wore the simple gray uniform that humans were required to wear in council spaces. She was 30 years old, and she had spent her whole life trying to work within the system. Today she would learn how little that mattered. "I am a registered human representative," Hannah said clearly. "Under Council Law 7, Section 12, I have the right to speak in defense of any human facing capital punishment." Volos looked at her the way someone might look at a bug that had learned to talk. "You may speak," he said. "Though I fail to see what difference it will make." Hannah walked toward the platform. Her heart was beating fast, but she kept her voice steady. "The accused is Una. 3 years ago, she was a simple ship mechanic on Colony 774. She had no political beliefs. She had no interest in rebellion. She only wanted to live in peace with her family." Hannah paused. Then the council came. She touched her tablet, and images appeared in the air above the platform. Images of a small colony. Simple homes. Children playing. And then images of fire. Bodies in the streets. Council ships hanging in the sky like metal birds of death. The council claimed that Colony 774 had exceeded its permitted human population quota, Hannah continued. The punishment for this crime was reduction. 6,000 humans were killed in one night. Una survived only because her brother Tai-Ho hid her in an underground storage room. The gallery was quiet now. Not because they cared, but because they were curious. They wanted to see where this story went. Tai-Ho became a resistance leader, Hannah said. He fought to protect the surviving humans. And 6 months ago, he was captured. He was brought to this very hall. He was sentenced to death by this very judge. She pointed at Volos. He was dissolved publicly as a warning to other humans. Hannah turned to look at Una. She watched her brother die on a screen. She watched him scream as his mind was erased piece by piece. And something inside her broke. Una's hands tightened into fists, but she remained silent. What she did after that was wrong, Hannah said. I do not deny it. But I ask this council to consider what made her this way. I ask you to consider mercy. She is only 24 years old. She has suffered enough. For a moment, the hall was still. Then Volos began to laugh. It was a terrible sound. It echoed through the chamber like stones falling into a deep well. Other aliens joined in. The laughter grew and grew until it filled the entire hall. "Mercy," Volos said, wiping his eyes with a thin finger. "The human asks for mercy." How amusing. He leaned forward on his throne. "Human representative, let me explain something to you. Mercy is for civilized species. Mercy is for those who can be taught. Humans cannot be taught. You breed like insects. You spread like disease. Every time we show you kindness, you repay us with violence." He gestured at Yuna with contempt. "Look at this creature. We gave her people a planet. We gave them food. We gave them purpose. And what did they do? They multiplied beyond their limits. They consumed resources that were not theirs. They forced us to act." "You murdered children," Hannah said quietly. "We removed a threat." Volos replied coldly. "As we will remove this one?" He stood, and the gallery fell silent again. "The human female Yuna is guilty of all charges," Volos declared. "The sentence is death by neural dissolution. The execution will take place tomorrow at midday, broadcast across all council channels. Let this serve as a reminder to all humans everywhere. You exist because we allow it. You will end because we demand it." Guards moved forward to take Yuna away. As they grabbed her arms, she finally spoke. "You will regret this." Her voice was soft, but somehow it carried through the entire hall. Volos paused. He looked down at her with something that might have been curiosity. "Is that a threat, little human?" Yuna smiled. It was a small smile, but there was something in it that made several aliens shift uncomfortably in their seats. "It is a promise," she said. The gallery laughed again. But this time, a few of them did not join in. Something about the way she said it made them wonder. The guards dragged her away. Volos sat back on his throne, already forgetting her. He would remember her soon enough. The guards took Yuna deep into the station. Down and down they went, through corridors that grew darker and colder with every turn. The walls changed from polished metal to rough stone. The air smelled like rust and fear. She counted everything. 14 guards from the courtroom to the first lift, 6 floors down, 22 steps from the lift to the cell block. 2 guards at every door. Their weapons were plasma rifles, standard council issue, slow to charge, easy to jam if you knew how. The aliens did not notice her watching. They thought she was afraid. They thought she had given up. That was their first mistake. They threw her into a small cell with walls of gray metal. The door slammed shut behind her and she was alone in the darkness. A single light flickered overhead, too weak to see clearly by. Yuna sat on the hard bed and closed her eyes. She let herself feel the pain in her body, the bruises on her ribs, the cuts on her wrists from the chains, the deep ache in her heart where her brother used to be. Taiho, she could still hear his voice in her mind. She could still see his smile. He had been the strong one, had been the leader. After their colony burned, he had gathered the survivors and taught them to fight. He had given them hope, and then the council had taken him. She remembered watching the broadcast. She remembered seeing him strapped to that chair, the neural probes descending toward his skull. She remembered his screams as his mind was erased, piece by piece, memory by memory. It had taken 4 hours for him to die. Council had made sure every human in the galaxy could watch. That was the night Yuna stopped being afraid. That was the night something cold and hard settled into her chest, replacing everything soft that had been there before. A voice came from the darkness beside her. "You were the one from the trial." Yuna opened her eyes. She had not noticed before, but there was another cell next to hers. Through the bars, she could see a figure sitting against the wall. A man. "Human? Who are you?" she asked. "My name is Do-Yun." He moved closer to the bars, and she could see his face. He was maybe 40 years old, with a scar running down his left cheek. His eyes were tired but sharp. "I was a captain in the Human Defense Force. 3 years ago, we tried to protect a refugee convoy. The council did not like that." 3 years, Yuna said. "You have been here 3 years? Time moves slowly in this place. I saw your face. I saw your trial on the screen. They broadcast it to all the cells. They want us to see what happens to humans who fight back." Yuna said nothing. You killed 17 officers, Do-yeon continued. I am impressed. But tomorrow you will die, and it will all mean nothing. That is how it works here. We fight. We lose. We die. Nothing changes. No, Yuna said quietly. No, she looked at him through the bars. I am not going to die tomorrow. Do-yeon laughed. It was a bitter sound without any joy in it. Little sister, I have seen many prisoners come through this place. Strong ones, brave ones. All of them said the same thing. All of them are dead now. They were not me. Something in her voice made Do-yeon stop laughing. He looked at her more closely. You really believe it, do you not? You really think you can escape from here? I do not think, Yuna said. I know. She got up from the bed and began to examine her cell. The walls were solid metal, welded together. The door was thick and heavy, with an electronic lock. But the bed was bolted to the floor with simple metal bolts, and one of them was slightly loose. She began to work on it, twisting it back and forth with her fingers. What are you doing? Do-yeon asked. Preparing with what? Bolt. Against guards with plasma rifles. Yuna did not answer. She kept working. The bolt moved a little more with each twist. Do-yeon watched her in silence for a while, and he said, the guards change every 6 hours. The night shift has only 4 guards on this level. They think we are too weak to be dangerous. Yuna looked up. Go on. The dissolution chamber is on level 12. There is only one corridor leading to it. They will take you through the main hall, past the armory, then down a service lift. How do you know this? I have been here 3 years, Do-yeon said. I have watched many people make that walk. None of them came back. Until now. Do-yeon shook his head, but there was something new in his eyes, something that looked almost like hope. Far away, in her diplomatic quarters, Hannah stared at her communication screen. She had just done something very dangerous. She had sent a message to the human underground telling them about Yuna, telling them when and where the execution would happen. She did not know if anyone would come. She did not know if it would make any difference, but she could not sit and do nothing. Not anymore. On a dozen human colonies, people were watching the news. They had seen the trial. They had seen the small woman standing before the alien judge. They had heard her say, "You will regret this." Something was stirring. Something that the council had tried very hard to destroy. It was anger. It was pride. It was the memory of what humans used to be, before they were conquered, before they were chained. In her cell, Yuna finished loosening the bolt. She pulled it free and held it in her hand. It was small and simple, just a piece of metal. But in the right hands at the right moment, it could change everything. She hid it in her sleeve and lay back on the bed. You should rest, Do-yeon said from his cell. Tomorrow will be difficult. Yes, Yuna agreed. For them, she closed her eyes. But she did not sleep. She lay in the darkness and planned. She thought about every step she would take, every movement she would make, every alien she would kill. Tomorrow, the council would learn something they had forgotten, something that every species in the galaxy had forgotten about humans. Humans did not conquer their world by being the strongest. They did not survive ice ages and plagues and wars by being the smartest. They survived because they never, ever gave up. They survived because when everything was taken from them, they became something terrifying. Tomorrow, Yuna would remind them. Morning came without sunlight. In space, there was no dawn. There was only the cold hum of machines and the distant footsteps of guards. Yuna was ready. She heard them coming long before they reached her cell. 8 guards this time, not 4. They were taking no chances. The door opened, and they pointed their weapons at her. On your feet, human. She stood slowly. She kept her hands visible, her body relaxed. She looked small and defeated. That was exactly what she wanted them to see. They chained her wrists and ankles. They put a metal collar around her neck with a glowing red light. One guard held a remote control. One wrong move, he said, showing her the device, and the collar will break your spine. Understand? Yuna nodded. They marched her through the corridors, past the armory, just as Do-yeon had said, up the service lift to level 12. Through a long white hallway that smelled like chemicals and death, the dissolution chamber was at the end. It was a large room. It's bright and sterile. In the center stood a single chair surrounded by thin metal arms ending in sharp probes. Those probes would enter her skull. They would find her memories, her thoughts, her sense of self, and they would erase everything one piece at a time, till there was nothing left. Above the chamber, a viewing gallery was filled with important aliens, council members, military officers, diplomats. They had come to watch a human die. And there, on a raised platform, sat Grand Arbiter Volos. He wore ceremonial robes of deep purple. A curved blade hung at his belt, a symbol of his authority. He had probably never used it. It was just for show. Cameras floated in the air around the room. The execution would be broadcast across the galaxy. Every human colony would be forced to watch. The council wanted them to see what happened to those who resisted. They did not know they were about to broadcast something very different. "Bring her forward," Volos commanded. The guards pushed Una toward the chair. She stumbled, catching herself on a guard's arm. He shoved her away with disgust. None of them noticed that her hand had brushed against the collar's control mechanism. They strapped her into the chair. Her wrists were locked into place. Her ankles were secured. The neural probes began to descend toward her head, humming with power. Volos stood and addressed the cameras. "Citizens of the Galactic Council, today we demonstrate the price of rebellion." This human thought she could challenge our authority. She thought she could kill our officers and escape justice. She was wrong. He gestured at Una with one long hand. "Look at her. Small, weak, pathetic. This is what humans truly are beneath their bravado. They are nothing. And soon, she will be less than nothing." The probes were inches from her skull now. Una could feel the electricity in the air. She moved. The bolt slid from her sleeve into her palm. She had spent all night loosening her right restraint, twisting her wrist just enough to create space. Now she pulled her hand free in one sharp motion. She drove the bolt into the control panel beside her. Sparks flew. The probes froze. The restraints clicked open. For 1 second, everyone in the room was still. They could not understand what had happened. It was impossible. She was a human. She was small and weak and defeated. Then Una was out of the chair. She grabbed the nearest guard by the throat and snapped his neck before he could raise his weapon. His plasma rifle fell into her hands. She fired twice. 2 more guards dropped. The 4th guard reached for his collar remote. Una shot him through the chest. "The killer." Someone screamed, but Una was already moving. She had studied their weapons. She knew their weaknesses. Plasma rifles needed 2 seconds to charge between shots. 2 seconds was forever in a fight. She moved between them like water. She did not waste a single motion. Every step, every strike, every shot was exactly where it needed to be. The guards fired wildly, hitting each other, hitting the walls, hitting nothing. Humans had evolved as endurance hunters. For millions of years, they had chased prey across open plains, never stopping, never tiring, until their targets collapsed from exhaustion. That instinct lived in Una's blood. She did not fight like the aliens expected. She did not stand and exchange fire. She kept moving, kept attacking, kept pushing until they broke. In 12 seconds, 7 guards were dead. The 8th ran. Una let him go. She turned toward the viewing gallery. The important aliens were screaming, trying to flee. Security doors were slamming shut. Alarms filled the air with noise, but Volos had not moved. He stood on his platform, staring down at her with his 4 pale eyes. There was something in his expression that Una had never seen before on an alien face. "Fear," he whispered. "What are you?" Una walked toward him. Blood dripped from a cut on her arm. More blood covered her hands. It was not hers. "I am human," she said. Volos reached for the blade at his belt. His hands were shaking so badly that he almost dropped it. He held it out in front of him like a shield. "Stay back," he commanded. "I am the Grand Arbiter. I am the voice of the Council. You cannot do this." Yuna climbed the steps to his platform. She moved slowly now. There was no rush. "Killed my brother," she said. "You killed my people. You called us insects. You called us disease." She stopped in front of him. "You were right about one thing. We do spread. We do multiply. We do survive." She took the blade from his trembling hands. He did not resist. "That is what makes us dangerous." Volos fell to his knees. "Please, I can give you freedom. I can give you pardons. I can give you anything you want." "I want my brother back," Yuna said quietly. "Can you give me that?" He had no answer. She killed him quickly. One clean strike across the throat. He deserved worse, but she was not cruel. She was just efficient. The cameras were still recording. The whole galaxy was watching. Millions of aliens saw their supreme judge fall. Millions of humans saw a small woman standing over his body. Covered in blood, still alive, Yuna looked directly into the nearest camera. "My name is Yuna," she said. "Remember it." Then she turned and walked out of the dissolution chamber, stepping over the bodies of the guards. Behind her, the alarms kept screaming. The revolution had begun. Commander Brix received the alert in his office. At first, he did not believe it. A human had escaped. A human had killed the Grand Arbiter. Impossible. Then he saw the footage. He watched the small woman move through the guards like they were standing still. He watched her take Volos apart with his own blade. He watched her look into the camera and say her name. For the first time in his long career, Brix felt something cold crawl down his spine. "Lock down the station," he ordered. "Every door, every corridor. I want 500 soldiers in that sector now." The station came alive with movement. Soldiers poured through the corridors. Security doors crashed shut. Every exit was blocked. Every escape route was sealed. They had her trapped. But Yuna was not trying to escape. Not yet. She moved through the lower levels, following the path she had memorized during her walk to the dissolution chamber. The armory first. She needed better weapons. 2 guards stood outside the armory door. They saw her coming and raised their rifles. "Stop right there, human." She did not stop. She did not slow down. She shot the first guard before he could fire. The second one managed to pull his trigger, but his shot went wide. She was already inside his reach, driving her elbow into his throat. He went down choking. The armory door had a code lock. Yuna did not know the code, but she knew something better. She knew that council technology was designed to be used by many different species. Some of those species did not have hands. Some did not have eyes. Every door had an emergency override for exactly these reasons. She found the panel and triggered it. The door opened. Inside was everything she needed. Rifles, explosives, body armor. She took what she could carry and kept moving. The detention level was 3 floors down. She reached the stairwell and started descending. Halfway down, she ran into a patrol of 6 soldiers. The fight was short and brutal. Yuna took a plasma burn to her left shoulder. She killed all 6 of them anyway. Pain was nothing. Pain was just information. Humans had learned to ignore pain long ago. It was the only way to survive. She reached the detention level. More guards waited there, but they were not ready. They were used to watching prisoners who had given up hope. They were not ready for someone who had already won. Yuna cut through them. She found Doyen's cell first. The old captain was standing at the bars, watching the chaos on a small screen mounted in the wall. "You actually did it," he said. There was wonder in his voice. "You actually killed him." Yuna shot the lock off his cell door. "I told you I would. You are insane." "Probably." She handed him a rifle. "Can you still fight?" Doyen took the weapon. His hands were steady. 3 years in prison had not broken him. "I have been waiting 3 years to fight." Together they moved through the detention level, opening cells as they went. Not all the prisoners were human. Some were aliens who had also offended the council. Yuna freed them too. Anyone who wanted to fight was welcome. In the end, 37 prisoners joined them. 37 people who had nothing left to lose. We need to reach the hangar, Yuna said. There are ships there. If we can steal one, we can escape. The hangar will be heavily guarded, Doyen warned. Everything is heavily guarded. That has not stopped us yet. They moved as a group now, fighting their way through corridor after corridor. The council soldiers came at them in waves, but they were confused and disorganized. Their commanders were screaming contradictory orders. No one had ever planned for this. No one had ever imagined that prisoners could fight back like this. Yuna led from the front. She was wounded in 3 more places now. Blood ran down her arms and soaked through her clothes, but she did not fall. She did not even slow down. The other prisoners watched her with something like awe. This small woman who would not die. This human who killed like a machine and bled like everyone else, but just kept going. Far away. In her diplomatic quarters, Hannah made her choice. She had been watching the broadcasts. She had seen Yuna's escape. She had seen the footage spread across every channel in the galaxy. Now she saw her chance. She accessed her diplomatic terminal and entered a series of codes. Emergency protocols. Override commands. Things she was absolutely not supposed to use. The station's main hangar doors began to open. Alarms screamed warnings. Security tried to stop it, but Hannah had planned this carefully. By the time they traced the command back to her, it would be too late. She picked up her personal communicator and sent one last message to the human underground. A set of coordinates. A time. A simple instruction. Come, now. Then she grabbed a weapon from her hidden compartment and went to join the fight. Yuna and her group reached the hangar just as the main doors finished opening. Beyond them was space, cold and dark and free. But between them and the ships stood Commander Brix and 200 soldiers. Surrender, Brix commanded. His voice echoed through the massive hangar. You are outnumbered. You cannot win. Lay down your weapons, and your deaths will be quick. Yuna stepped forward. She was covered in blood. Her shoulder was burned black. She looked like death walking. We are human, she said. We do not surrender. Then you will die. Maybe, Yuna smiled. It was a terrible smile. But so will a lot of you. Brix gave the order to fire. The hangar erupted into chaos. Plasma bolts flew in every direction. People screamed and fell. The noise was deafening. Yuna's group was outnumbered 10-1. They should have been destroyed in seconds. But they were fighting for their lives. They were fighting for their freedom. And that made them dangerous in ways the Council could not understand. They pushed forward. Step by bloody step. Body by body. They fought their way toward the nearest ship, leaving a trail of dead soldiers behind them. Halfway there, Hannah appeared from a side corridor. She was firing a pistol with one hand and dragging a wounded prisoner with the other. The ships are fueled, she shouted. Go now. What about you? Someone has to hold them off. Hannah took cover behind a cargo container. Go. Tell the galaxy what happened here. Tell them we are not slaves. There was no time to argue. Yuna led the survivors onto the nearest ship. Doyen took the controls. Behind them, Hannah and a handful of volunteers held the line, buying them seconds with their lives. The ship lifted off. It shot through the open hangar doors into the darkness of space. Behind them, the station grew smaller and smaller. Yuna looked back through the rear window. She saw fire blooming inside the hangar. She saw the tiny flashes of weapons fire. She saw Hannah fall. She saved us, Doyen said quietly. Yes. Yuna's voice was flat. Empty. She did. But there would be time to mourn later. Right now, they had to survive. The ship jumped to light speed, leaving the station behind. On a dozen human colonies, people watched the broadcasts. They saw the escape. They saw the ship flying free. They saw that it was possible to fight back, and something that had been sleeping for a very long time began to wake up. 3 months passed. The galaxy was not the same. On the Galactic Council station, Elder Kale sat in his chambers and read the latest reports. They were all bad. Every single one of them. Riots on 12 human colonies. Military outposts attacked on 7 worlds. Supply lines disrupted across 3 entire sectors. And everywhere. It's the same name on the lips of humans and aliens alike. Why you, Anna, the girl who killed the judge, the woman who escaped the dissolution chamber, the human who had done the impossible and lived to tell about it. Kale had warned them. Years ago, he had told the council that crushing humans would only make them more dangerous. He had told them that fear was not the same as control. No one had listened. Now they were paying the price. A message arrived on his screen. It was from the human rebels. They wanted to talk. Kale stared at the message for a long time. Then he began to type a reply. Far across the galaxy, the stolen ship had become a fleet. It started small. A few refugee vessels that heard about the escape and came looking for hope. Then more ships arrived. Military vessels crewed by human soldiers who had deserted the council, cargo ships filled with supplies stolen from alien warehouses, even some alien ships crewed by species who had their own reasons to hate the council. Yuna had never wanted to be a leader. She had never wanted to be a symbol. But the universe did not care what she wanted. It only cared what she did, and what she did was refuse to stop. She stood on the bridge of her flagship now, looking out at the stars. The ship was called the Taiho, named after her brother. It was not the biggest ship in the fleet. It was not the most powerful. But it was hers. Doyen stood beside her. The old captain had become her military advisor. His 3 years in prison had taught him patience. His 20 years of military service before that had taught him everything else. The council has agreed to negotiations, he said. Yuna did not look away from the stars. When 3 days, they want to meet at a neutral station in the Outer Rim. Elder Kale himself will represent them. Kale Yuna knew the name. He was different from the others. Smarter, more careful. He had always warned the council about pushing humans too hard. Not because he cared about humans, but because he understood what they were capable of. It could be a trap, Doyan said. It could be, but you were going anyway. Yuna finally turned to look at him. Her face was harder than it had been 3 months ago. There were new scars on her arms and neck. Her eyes were older, but somewhere in them, there was still the same fire that had burned in the dissolution chamber. Yes, she said. I am going. What will you demand? She had thought about this question for a long time. At first, she had wanted revenge. She had wanted to burn every council station to ash. She had wanted to make them suffer the way her people had suffered. But revenge was not enough. Revenge would not bring back Taiho. Revenge would not bring back the 6,000 people who died on Colony 774. Revenge would not give humanity a future. Everything they took, Yuna said. Our colonies. Our freedom. Our right to exist without their permission. She paused. And a promise. Never again, they will not agree icily. No, they will not. Yuna walked to the communication console. That is why we need to remind them what will happen if they refuse. She opened a channel. It was broadcast on all frequencies. Human ships received it. Alien ships received it. Every station, every colony, every world within 1,000 light years heard her voice. My name is Yuna. 3 months ago, the Galactic Council sentenced me to death. I am still here. She paused, letting the words sink in. You tried to make us afraid. You killed our families. You burned our homes. You told us we were insects. You told us we were disease. You told us to kneel. Her voice grew harder. We did not kneel. We will never kneel. For 200 years, you have treated humanity like animals. You have hunted us. You have caged us. You have dissolved our minds for the crime of wanting to be free. She thought of Tai-Ho. She thought of Hannah. She thought of everyone who had died to bring her to this moment. That ends now. The council has 3 days to come to the table. 3 days to recognize that humanity is not your property. 3 days to begin making things right. She leaned closer to the microphone. If they refuse, we will not stop. We will not rest. We will fight until every chain is broken. We are humans. We survived ice ages. We survived plagues. We survived wars. We survived you. She let the words hang in the silence. This is your one warning. Humanity remembers. Humanity endures. And humanity will never kneel again. She cut the transmission. The bridge was quiet. Doyen and the other officers stood motionless, watching her. Some of them had tears in their eyes. What now? Doyen asked. Yuna looked back out at the stars. Somewhere out there, humans were listening. They were standing a little straighter. They were holding their heads a little higher. They were remembering who they were. Now, she said, we wait, and we prepare. Whatever comes next, we face it together. The fleet moved through space like a river of light. 30 ships, then 50, then 100. Every day, more arrived. Humans who had given up hope were finding it again. Humans who had forgotten how to fight were learning. The Council had made a mistake 3 months ago. They had tried to create a warning for humanity. Instead, they had created something far more dangerous. They had created a leader. They had created a legend. They had created a promise that would echo through the galaxy for generations to come. Yuna stood at the window of her ship and watched the stars burn. The age of the Council was ending. The age of humanity was just beginning.